Hey everyone, welcome back to Television Lit Review. My name is Elizabeth, and today we are diving into Supernatural Season 1, Episodes 2, 3, and 4. The reason why I combined these 3 episodes together into one video is because all 3 of them give us, roughly speaking, the same sorts of things, the same sorts of literary elements. The elements that we get that are common to all 3 episodes are raw symbolism. We get character development for both Sam and Dean, and a little bit of John as well. We have a lot of foreshadowing in all 3 of these episodes, and we also get demons. Wait, demons? Yes, demons before episode 4, and I'm going to show you what I mean. I've got a couple of shout outs that I need to do. My first shout out is to SKK, my first patron over on Patreon. The biggest reason why I wanted to do this channel was to open up an area of discussion for a topic that doesn't seem to be discussed very much. And she and I have already had a couple of very interesting and very enlightening conversations over on Patreon. So shout out to her. Thank you so much for supporting me. The other shout out I want to give is for Shelly on YouTube and Patreon. Now, Shelly was so kind and she gave me a shout out on her channel, which was very, very helpful, and I am very, very grateful. A lot of you found me through her, but in case you didn't, you should go check Shelly out on YouTube and on Patreon. She is a first-time reactor for several television shows and also for some behind-the-scenes content. She is really smart. She makes a lot of insightful connections, even the first time watching episodes. So thank you so much, Shelly, for sending some people my way, and I hope I can send some more people your way as well. I realized as I was editing my last video that I never actually explained who Joseph Campbell was. Joseph Campbell was an American writer and also a literature professor over at Sarah Lawrence College. In 1949, he published a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and in it, he presents the idea that mythological heroes, regardless of culture, regardless of religion, regardless of the period of time, all share the same qualities and essentially follow the same storyline. And he makes an appearance in the second episode, Wendigo. In the opening image of the episode, we see that there are 3 friends on a camping trip. The third friend that we see is reading a book. What book is he reading? He is reading The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. Why the Easter egg? As Jared Padalecki suggested, Eric Kripke originally intended from the beginning that Supernatural was going to follow the hero's journey, or what Joseph Campbell calls the monomyth, at least to a certain degree. The first symbol that we can talk about are dreams, and dreams in literature always represent the state of somebody's psyche. The next big symbol that we can talk about in Wendigo is the forest, and a forest is a classic symbol of being lost. This episode deals with a lost brother whom they go to find, which itself is a big symbol for the fact that Dean and Sam are trying to find John, that John is lost and they're trying to go and find him. We also see that Sam and Dean go into the woods. Who is going to lose a piece of themselves along the way? The next big symbol we can talk about is the concept of cannibalism. Now, we find out in this episode that a Wendigo basically becomes a Wendigo because he ate other human beings. So, cannibalism. In literature, what cannibalism represents is a person or a personality who engages in a very specific kind of toxic relationship. A healthy relationship, you get some of that and you give some of that, and that's why it's beneficial to both people. In certain unhealthy relationships, you have one person who is benefiting from the relationship and the other person who's getting taken advantage of. And a lot of times these real life people are taking or using somebody else's resources without permission and or without compensation. In real life, psychologists often refer to these as vampiric personalities. Whom is it representing? Who in the extended story is going to turn out to be a vampiric or a cannibalistic personality? Maybe not literally, but as far as their relationships go. And the last big symbol in Wendigo is the cave. Caves are dark, and they also often are a maze of some kind. You have a character or characters plural who are in a state of ignorance. Now, the maze or labyrinth part of this symbolizes that this state is difficult to get out of. The philosopher Plato actually wrote a little story. It's called the Allegory of the Cave. So you have a whole bunch of people living in a cave. They don't know what reality is, and they kind of create a reality for themselves, or they're told a reality and they accept it as true. If somebody escapes the cave and they go out into the daylight and they see sunlight, natural light for the first time, as their eyes adjust, they'll see reality for what it actually is. What they thought about the world before when they were in the cave, that's all wrong. If he tries to go back into the cave and explain to those other people who are still living in the cave what is actually out there, these people are not going to believe him because they don't want their understanding of the world to be shaken. So the cave at the end of Wendigo symbolizes that at least one of our characters has a perception of the world that they believe is true, but they haven't yet seen reality. Whom is this symbol representing? What perception is it that they have that is wrong? And what is the reality that they can't see or refuse to see? The third episode, that would be Dead in the Water. And obviously the first symbol that we can talk about here is water. What does water represent? In real life, if we have to put a fire out, we're probably going to use water. Now this can have all sorts of implications there that, what water represents can quench the fires of passion or the fires of knowledge, as it were. I'm not going to go into that. That's way too complex. If you guys want to hear more about that, I'm happy to do another video entirely on that topic, but we don't have time right now. It represents kinetic energy as opposed to fire, which represents thermal energy and light energy. Another thing that water represents is life. All living things on the planet Earth require water in order to survive. A human can go, several weeks even without any food at all. I mean, it's painful, but it can be done. A human being cannot go more than 3 or 4 days at most without any water. Something else that water represents is cycles, perpetuation, renewal of resources. Another thing that water represents is development. But water was also extremely important to the development of societies, to innovation in the development of new technologies, agriculture, the water wheel, the trade system, a way to travel, but from one place to another, happened a lot of the times on rivers, on water. But in the episode Dead in the Water, there is another symbol which represents all 4 of these concepts. It's children. Especially once they gain some motor control and they start moving around on their own, they represent kinetic energy and movement. Children also represent life and perpetuation because they are our offspring, because they are perpetuating, they're giving life to our species down the line. And children are constantly developing. They're constantly learning new skills. They're developing in their body. Children are developing humans. We have water and we have children, and they represent essentially the same things. Now, getting into the 4th episode, Phantom Traveler, the symbolism of flying for humans, of humans flying. It is a symbol of freedom, or the desire to break free of something, and freedom from your own shortcomings, or freedom from a situation, or freedom from the rules as a whole. Now, going right along with that, particularly in this episode, is falling. And falling across literature is representative of failure. We're going to touch a little bit more on this topic in just a little while. The other big symbol that we see in Phantom Traveler is demonic possession. And the most common thing that this represents is the duality of human nature. All humans, no matter how much good is in them, all humans also have a bit of bad in them. This is why it is often used in the horror genre as a whole. It represents us as humans and the evil or darker part of our nature coming forward and winning over the goodness. And lastly, demonic possession represents the matter of consent and violation, particularly in season 5, and also a little bit in season 7 when Sam is having his whole mental breakdown. So we're going to talk a little bit about character development. We're going to start with Dean. In episode 2 in Wendigo, we mostly just get more of what we already know about Dean. Fun-loving traits. He's charming, he's witty, he's sarcastic, he goes out and he wants to get the girls. Driven to get safety and security for other people, specifies that his need to rid the world of evil. But what we get in episode 3 is mostly the introduction of Teddy Bear Dean, the deeper emotional, sentimental, feeling side of Dean that we don't really get to see very often because he puts up this wall. We see this primarily in how he connects to the character Lucas, the little boy, not just as a means to an end. He is actually emotionally connecting and connecting interpersonally with Lucas because of the things that have happened in Dean's past.
You're scared. It's okay. I saw something real bad happen to my mom. I know she wanted me to be brave. And maybe your dad wants you to be brave too.
Of importance, we are not the only people who are introduced to this side of Dean. Sam has a conversation with him in the car in which he says, "You never told me that about Mom."
You know, what you said about Mom, you never told me that before.
It's no big deal.
So this whole episode is a further insight into Dean and his emotions regarding the past and his unwillingness to show them. Then in episode 4, we get a little bit more Dean development. We learn that he has a fear of flying. He has a fear of airplanes. So here's the big question. Is Dean afraid of flying or is he afraid of falling? I would argue that it's both. I think his fear of flying represents a fear of freedom from Dad's ideals because he's afraid of failure. And now we're going to talk a little bit about what we learn about Sam in these 3 episodes. A little music detail. When in the beginning of Wendigo, he suddenly jerks awake, the song that's playing is Hot Blooded by Foreigner. I'm pretty sure this is not on the Netflix version, that this is indicative of his frame of mind, of the state of his head, if you will. He is hot-blooded.
Well, since when do you all shoot first to ask questions later anyway?
Since now.
You're like a powder keg, man. It's not like you.
In Wendigo especially, we get a lot of Sam's one-track mind, his vengeance-driven task, and we get a lot of very angry negativity from him.
So what are we waiting for? Let's just go find Dad. I mean, why even talk to this girl? Now we gotta babysit too? Go find Dad? I mean, why are we still even here?
He says things like, why even talk to this girl? He has no interest in talking to Haley. He has no interest in joining them on the search for Tommy. The only thing he's interested in is finding John so that he can find Jessica's killer. We see this continuing in the beginning of episode 3 in Dead in the Water. He's also hesitant to go and check out the lake.
What closure? People don't just disappear, Dean. Other people just stop looking for them. Trail for Dad. It's getting colder every day.
Exactly. So what are we supposed to do?
He thinks that there's no reason to go there. If we have no indication that Dad's there, why are we even going? And in episode 4, we get the first episode in which Sam doesn't throw a fit about helping somebody else. We see him maybe starting to let go of his, selfish motivations a little bit, and maybe being a little more open to helping other people. We also get a little bit of John development. We also see a little bit more about John's character, and that would come when they're talking to the airplane guy. I'm not totally sure what his position is at the airline, but the guy who contacted him was talking to Sam and saying, John was real proud of you, I could tell.
Your dad said you were off at college, that right?
Yeah, I was. I'm taking some time off.
He was real proud of you, I could tell. He talked about you all the time.
He did?
Yeah, you bet he did.
So here's the question. We already know that Sam and John had this big blowout fight over the fact that Sam wanted to go to college. But here we have somebody saying that John was really proud of him for going to college. So why the contradiction? How does he actually feel about Sam? How does he actually feel about Sam going off to college and Sam wanting to do his own thing? We don't know, but we have the first indication that maybe Sam's perception of John isn't quite right. Next thing we're going to talk about is foreshadowing in these 3 episodes, and there is a lot of it. And then we have the nature of the Wendigo specifically. We talked about cannibalism, but the Wendigo specifically, we get a lot of information about the characteristics of a Wendigo, where it came from, what it does, how it behaves. And this is actually foreshadowing for the current bad guy. It was once a man, and cannibalism turned him monstrous. We find out later in season 3 that all demons once were human.
So all of them? But every damn demon? They were all human once?
Everyone I've ever met.
And we find out piece by piece through season 4 that one of the ways they turned into a demon was by tormenting other human souls that were in hell. This is an instance of a human being that devoured, if you will, other human beings and therefore became monstrous like a Wendigo. Another characteristic of the Wendigo is that it can mimic a human voice. Demons, in order to walk the earth, have to possess a human being, which means that they can pass as a human. They walk around like a human, they look like a human, they talk like a human, they mimic humans. A Wendigo also keeps its food hidden and safe so that it can use them when it needs to. He keeps his psychic kids, specifically Sam, safe in a form and primed for when he needs them at the end of season 2. The Wendigo hibernates for years at a time. According to Sam, this Wendigo comes back every 23 years, just like clockwork.
Every 23 years, just like clockwork.
Now, we've already established that the thing that they're hunting disappeared for a good long while, but what is the importance of the number 23? Take a look at this clip.
Let me take a wild guess. You two are both 23? We all are, and we all have abilities.
The yellow-eyed demon disappeared after corrupting his psychic kids. It all culminated in the Hunger Games style shootout at the end of season 2 after 23 years. And the last little bit of foreshadowing regarding the Wendigo.
There's something evil in those woods. It was some sort of a demon.
It was some kind of a demon. Okay, we could probably write that off as just a line that the writers threw in there. Except that in season 3, we get this line as well.
Water wraith, maybe? Some kind of demon?
Now that's twice in 2 episodes that we're mentioning demons as a possible explanation for what's going on.
I believe in a lot of things. Coincidence ain't one of them.
Then in episode 3, in Dead in the Water, the sheriff sacrifices himself in order to save his daughter and his grandson. Fathers who made a mistake in the past, a very grievous mistake, but it came back to affect not just them, but all of their children and their grandchildren as well. Instead of avoiding the situation, the sheriff actually sacrificed himself. Once he realized what was going on, he did the right thing. He sacrificed himself in order to save his daughter and his grandson and anyone else that the ghost may have taken this out on. And obviously this seems like foreshadowing for how the very beginning of season 2 is gonna go. And then in episode 4, we get our first encounter with an actual demon. Now, how Sam and Dean react to this, we get their perception of these things, and we get the implication that this is John's perception as well.
I don't know, man. This isn't our normal gig. I mean, demons, they don't want anything, just death and destruction for its own sake.
However, when the demon speaks to Sam at the very end about Jessica, we get a few implications. We get the implication that demons may have been involved in Jessica's death and therefore in Mary's death. Demons might be more interconnected with each other than we previously thought. This hints that there is an overarching demonic plan in place that is helping to drive the story forward. Now, the very last thing I want to talk about with these 3 episodes, or really just Wendigo, is this quote right here.
You know, saving people, hunting things. The family business.
Now, this is one of the most iconic statements in the entire series. It's repeated multiple times in the recaps for many, many episodes down the line. Clearly, this is an important plot point. But which one? This plot point falls at exactly 6.8% into season 1. Yes, I'm a nerd. You can say it. I'm not going to be offended. If you haven't guessed it already, this is the season 1 theme. Alludes to the changes the boys will have to make by the end of season 1. That's it today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys got something from it. As a reminder, if you want to see the full video, go check out my Patreon page. I'll have the link down in the description. And please also go check out Shelly on YouTube and Patreon if you have not done so already. She has a great personality. She's one of my favorite people. So please go give her some love, and I hope to see you guys real soon. Bye.